So this is this learning to have a skillful foundation of living in the world, and the world not outside somewhere, but the world being, because the Buddha was asked, the world, what is the world? And was the world is the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind. That is the world. So that we're always engaged with the world. It's just the nature of human existence. And to develop a foundation of Dhamma to live within the world. And that is a the refuges are an important element of that. And I think we have 10 days to if one spends time reflecting on how can we develop a clear or more clear relationship with the refuges of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Because sometimes we think of it just as a Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, as some kind of devotional element, but it's very much a part of the principles of the Buddha's dispensation are grounded in what Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha as refuge mean to us, so that the refuge of the Buddha, of course, part of it is as a historical being, but it's more the principle of of wisdom, of compassion, of purity, and those are internal qualities that we want to be drawing close to when we think we have, say, Buddha as refuge. It also means having a clear relationship with those qualities of the heart that are aligned with wisdom, with compassion, with purity, and that is a refuge. The refuge in Dhamma is not just a refuge in, say, memorizing teachings or having extensive knowledge of the suttas. I mean, that's helpful, but it's also having a sense of reliance, appreciation, respect for truth. So what aligns with truth? What aligns with the true nature of existence? And of course, what the Buddha pointed to as fundamental truths is the truth of impermanence, the truth of unsatisfactoriness, the truth of not self. These are universal characteristics that are aspects of Dhamma, and to be having Dhamma as refuge is to be viewing things through the lens of these universal characteristics, universal manifestations of truth. So that because normally how we view things is through the lens of our preferences, our likes, our dislikes, our fears, our wants, our desires, and And as long as we keep relying on those as a basis, then we keep being frustrated. But that turning of attention to having a refuge in the true nature of things, and it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It doesn't have to be overly theoretical or philosophical. And I think, of course, Luang Por Sumedho very succinctly emphasizes over and over and over again is the phrase that he uses is, it's like this, and this is this. So okay, this is what truth is like when it's like this. And when we say, what do you mean? What's it like this? That doesn't mean anything. It's uncertain. It's unsure. It's changing. It's impermanent. It's as long as we relate to it out of desire or fear, it is unsatisfactory, and none of it is a stable basis for saying, this is me, this is mine, this is what I am. So this sense of not self. So learning to relate to our experience through the lens of Dhamma as refuge, as opposed to the lens of our preferences and reactivity. So with having Sangha as refuge is having Sangha as the of course the external Sangha. There's a whole bank of ordained Sangha. That's one form of refuge, but it's in truth it's much more around the aspect of practice, as we say just chanted in the recollection of Sangha. It's one who practices well, practices directly, practices insightfully, practices with integrity. It's the practice, and the word in say when we chant in Pali, it's like supatipanno, uchupatipanno, nyaya patipanno, samichi patipanno. Those are patipanno, patipat, one who practices, one who trains. So that is a refuge. And say one can't wait for somebody else to do the training or the practice for one. We have to do it ourselves. So that learning how to take a refuge in our training and the effort that we put forth toward training. So there's a refuge in virtue, in conduct that is skillful, that is aligned with training. So that is a refuge. So these are the fundamental refuges of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and that is really the basis of where we grow in terms of meditation. If we really pay attention to the refuges, our meditation will grow. It has that lays an extremely firm and solid foundation for growth. Because in terms of meditation, it isn't just a matter of being able to focus the mind on an object, but the ability of the mind to be stable and firm and not easily shaken. That is really the goal of meditation, or of this practice, of this training, of this cultivation. And mindfulness and sort of various tools and techniques are a part of it. But it's important to understand the larger goal, or the bigger picture of why do we practice? Why do we meditate? Why do we cultivate? What's the purpose of it? What is its actual aim? And that aim of stability and clarity, and having a solid foundation of a refuge in the heart is really, to me, it's really essential, and very much is again, we're thinking in terms of the retreat being a monastic retreat. This is from a monastic perspective, maybe it's a broader perspective, a broader goal, a longer viewpoint, looking in terms of the it's not just sort of how do I make my mind peaceful for this say this day, or even these 10 days, but how do I lay the foundation that I can build on and continue to grow from, that will lead to a place of peace and freedom from suffering. And those are I think it's really helpful to have that broad perspective, and a long-term perspective, long vision. That what we do has the possibility of bringing benefit and bringing fruit. Say throughout this whole lifetime, and if one is comfortable with the perspective of rebirth, then over lifetimes, and one's laying a foundation for this, having a true refuge that carries with one. Of course, the precepts are part of that as well. The 8 precepts are the renunciant precepts, and that renunciation in the English language, and certainly in American culture, I mean, that has not a very popular perspective, but it's just as a matter of language, in the sense that say from the say from the Pali, the scriptural language, and they say these are like renunciation. This means nekamma, and nekamma is one of the paramis. It's one of the the 10 in terms 10 paramis, 10 virtuous qualities that are all bound up with liberation, with awakening, so that renunciation is not some miserable state of lack or having to give up something. It's more like the heart really leaping forward quite joyfully towards simplicity and delighting in simplicity, because that's what say the paramis are all extremely wholesome and bright qualities that are like a catalyst for crossing over, and that's part of that. The word itself, parami, is like there's an image or a conveys a certain quality of crossing over from suffering to happiness, crossing over from agitation to peace, crossing over from complication to simplicity, crossing over from samsara to nibbana. These are these wholesome qualities are a part of the catalyst that allows that crossing over, so that sila or virtue is one of the paramis, and that picking up, and depending on the circumstances, people are doing this retreat at home. If you can commit to it, great. If it's difficult for some reason, and pick up the spirit of that simplicity and stepping back from things that complicate. So that what is it that allows a simplicity that's also quite joyful. For many people, the thought of having to do without something is quite daunting. But and that's where it's helpful being in being in a monastery or being in a retreat setting where everybody's doing it, and it's that's not so difficult, and it becomes quite it's not only is it not difficult, this is really that feels good, that's nice, and that's really so much of what say the monastic form that the Buddha gives is both for the lay community and for the monastics. It lays out a form that is, it's very livable, it's very sustainable, and it's very easeful. It does challenge us at times because of our preferences or our habits, but as we give ourselves to it, one starts to really delight in the benefits, and so that we have just experimenting, and seeing how it feels, how it works, what is what are the fruits of that. So it's having 10 days to explore that. Certainly that aspect of renunciation is not just about keeping precepts or living say a materially simple life. What's even more important to learn how to relinquish views and opinions. God, it's just, if we were able to give up even a fraction of our views and opinions, just how peaceful the mind could become. Just that relinquishing the kind of self-obsession that comes with identity, that identification with do people like me? Do they not like me? Do they do they speak well of me? Do they criticize me? Do they all of the entanglements of identity, and it doesn't mean that one becomes a nothing. It just means that one is comfortable with what one is, and we're not trying to prop up an identity, not trying to keep running on a program of what I think I should be, what I shouldn't be, but it's more what's useful, what's beneficial, what is for my own well-being and for the well-being of others. That's the Buddha's basis of reflection, and so then that gives us a different perspective, and it requires a certain relinquishment, relinquishing of our identification, our views, our opinions, our preferences, and that can be a bit scary, but it's like giving oneself permission to test the waters of what it means to have some space in the heart, having that spaciousness of being, having us actually being comfortable with being happy and peaceful. How often do we actually give ourselves permission to do that? And that so that recognizing that the practice that we're doing, the meditation that we're doing, is a it's not just a technique of trying to keep the mind focused on one object, but it's a cultivation of the heart, a maturing of the heart, and it's helpful to have a continuity of awareness and attention. I mean that is part and parcel of a mature heart. So that learning how to work with the mind, and as we go through this 10-day retreat, we'll be giving various instruction, but that learning how to support the mind that is is aware, is attentive, is alert, is present, and settled, steady, and that's not just a mental activity, but it's a whole body-mind cultivation. So much of the cultivation of what we call mindfulness is learning how to also be attentive to the body itself, attentive to the posture, attentive to the breathing, attentive to the movement of the body. These are foundations of mindfulness. Attentive of what it feels like to feel anxious, or what it feels like to be peaceful. Oftentimes we live in the conceptual realm and skip over the experiential realm, so that if we do anything in these 10 days, just learning how to come back to a fundamental experience of being a human being, having a body, having a mind, having feelings, having moods, having thoughts, but grounded in this body-mind process. So this cultivation of mindfulness, of awareness, is, again, a sense of broader base, not sort of hyper-focused, but a broader perspective, so that it's being held within the framework of what is it? What's the goal? What's the purpose? Where are we headed with this? So I think as a bit of a introduction to for the evening, introduction for the how to how to approach the whole retreat time, that's probably enough instruction. We could take the opportunity to sit quietly.